Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You could find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. As always, I am here to help you break down the NBA DFS slate for tonight on both DraftKings and FanDuel. We're looking at a 9-game slate tonight, so pretty big. But for Friday, it's actually kind of smaller. We've seen kind of slates mostly in the double digits in terms of games, so we should be able to get through this one fairly quickly. I like to go game by game. I have both DraftKings and FanDuel windows open here, as well as the Occupy model. We are still waiting for FanDuel data to kind of feed into the model today. Usually we have this info at the time of recording the video, so kind of bear with me. I'm going to lean a bit more on DK today, but I will click over to FanDuel to kind of talk about pricing discrepancies where I can. If you haven't already, please like the video. Also click subscribe. That helps us climb up these YouTube algorithms and get you more free content like this on a regular basis. Also, if you're not already a member at Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. You get access to the model you see here where you can sort by ownership percentage, value, and OF index for each slate. You also get a single and multi lineup builder, access to a private Discord server where you have access to DFS pros to help you build lineups and just talk strategy on a day-to-day basis. We also have a 30-minute window leading up to each slate's lock where you could ask lineup-specific questions. So, without further ado, let's get into the slate again. 9 games. You guys who watch us frequently know I like to go game by game. I'm going to do my best to do this quickly. And yeah, we got an interesting one to start things off. We have the Wizards at the Magic at 7 o'clock. The Wizards are 5-point favorites on the road in Orlando. Okay, so I'll start with the Wizards side. They're a bit easier to talk about. Bradley Beal's questionable, and he has a hamstring injury. These are typically lingering injuries. With this being the first game on the slate, we should have this news prior to lock, so definitely keep an eye on that. Other than Bradley Beal, no major injuries here, other than Taj Gibson is questionable. I don't really consider him a needle mover. But yeah, as far as Bradley Beal goes, if he's out, that's going to be a big boost to Kristaps Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma. They both look a lot better here. This is a favorable matchup against a soft defense. 223.5 point game total is pretty average for this slate. But yeah, I would like those two a lot here. If Beal is in, I do think he's a fine play, not really someone I'm rushing to get to. And then as far as secondary options for Washington to go, they're all kind of priced where they should be. There's really no one I'm seeing as a priority. But yeah, let's talk about the Orlando side now. So the Magic and Pistons got into a fight the other night. A bunch of guys suspended on both teams, more so on the Magic side of things. And yeah, they had so many guys suspended that they're kind of splitting things up. Most of the team is serving their suspension starting today, but there are players who are able to play that are technically suspended that won't be out until the 4th. So, just reading through today's injury report, Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., R.J. Hampton, Gary Harris, all suspended, as well as Mo Wagner. Jalen Suggs, Okiki, Isaac are all still out with actual injuries. But what this means is the Magic are only going to have 8 men on their roster tonight, unless they call someone up from the G League. I don't imagine that happens. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting situation here. So the best plays are the guys who you would normally play from the Magic that are still in. I like Markel Fultz. I like Bol Bol. I like Franz Wagner. And I like Paulo Banchero. They should all push 40 minutes here, which is a lot. This is not a team that usually drives their starters into the ground like that. So we're going to get increased production out of all of these guys. They're all priced kind of reasonably. There's no major discrepancies. I will say Bol Bol is too cheap on DK at 4,800, but really, if you're playing cash games or single entries, I think you're going to want 3 or 4 of these Magic in your lineup. Again, Fultz, Wagner, Bol Bol, Banchero are all priority plays. But then when you pull up Orlando, we got to look at these secondary plays here as well, because if they do stick to just an 8-man rotation, then guys like Caleb Houston, Kevon Harris, Terrence Ross are all going to become interesting plays here as well. So yeah, Terrence Ross, first and foremost, I mean, a couple years ago, he was actually a really good NBA player. He's very scoring dependent. He's going to shoot the ball a lot when he is on the floor. I imagine he'll have a high usage rate when he does hit the floor tonight. It's just tough to rely on a guy like that because he is so scoring dependent. If his shot's not falling, he really has no other way to get you fantasy points. For me personally, I think he's fine to kind of mix in Definitely keep an eye on the starting lineup. There is a chance maybe they break things up because they want more of the ball handlers and the actual good players kind of staggered in their minutes. They're going to have to rest some of these starters throughout the game. But yeah, I mean, as things stand, I don't mind Terrence Ross. It looks like he is drawing pretty significant ownership. Then Kevon Harris, he's just been pretty terrible. I think he's averaging less than a half of a fantasy point per minute so far. Um, Really not excited to get to him. Caleb Houston, similar story. These are two players, I don't know, at 3K flat on DK and just above min salary on FanDuel. They're fine to mix into your tournament bills, but I wouldn't consider either priorities. I mean, Admiral Schofield, we've seen have some big games in the past. Another guy I just have trouble trusting here. We do see him popping his value, getting some ownership on DK, a little bit over on FanDuel as well. But again, the priorities here are Franz, Bol, Fultz, Bonchero. Those four are going to be staples for most of your builds tonight. And it kind of stinks that this is the first game on the slate. If we need maneuverability and we need the ability to late swap, I mean, you're kind of hamstringing yourself by locking so many of these guys in, but they're just going to be such good plays here playing over 40 minutes. It's really a tough situation to avoid. Um, but yeah, I don't mind Ross. He's kind of the first guy off the bench I think I would have interest in. Not crazy about Schofield, Harris, or Houston, but I will say Wagner, Bol, Bonchero, Fultz, all priorities for me here. So keep an eye on the starting lineup. Typically, I'd say I think Brad Beal plays tonight for the Wizards, but with so many guys out for Orlando, it might be more likely that he rests. Like, why not just rest him here? Which would be a boost to Kristaps and Kuzma as well. So really, the first game on the slate, probably the most interesting. I do like pieces from both sides here. They're going to be extremely chalky. If we're sorting by ownership right now, obviously we see these Magic popping towards the top. Bol, more expensive on FanDuel, not nearly as popular as he is on DK, but I like him a lot on both sites. Faults on both sites. Franz Wagner, Bonchero, both on both sites, and then yeah, Ross is probably the one real punt value play I could see getting to significantly. Schofield's fine, but yeah, I'm talking a lot about this team, but it's important. This is definitely a major part of this slate. So let's move into the next game now. We have the Lakers at the Hawks. The Hawks are 7.5 point favorites at home, hosting the Lakers here. Trae Young is listed as probable. He did miss last game. With him back, that is going to kind of dampen the upside of some of the other starters for the Hawks. Clint Capella is still out though, so Onyeka Okongwu and John Collins are both going to look better than they usually do here. We're getting Collins. He's up to 6,300 on FanDuel. Still think that's a fine play. I like him a lot here. Okongwu at 6,200. He's priced up. Not as eager to get to him as I am to Collins just because there are so many good center plays tonight, but I don't mind it. At 5,300 on DK, I like him better over there. 5,700 for Collins on DK. Even with Trey back, I think that's kind of a borderline core play. I like him a lot here. Other guys, Bogdanovich, Murray, all fine plays. No real priorities for me there. But yeah, it's the front court you need to look at for Atlanta. It's Okongwu and it's Collins. They're both really strong plays. Don't think you have to force either, but I do imagine they'll be popular, and they do have really solid upside in this matchup. Over on the Lakers side, we're looking at AD obviously still out. Um, LeBron James listed as questionable. I think he plays tonight. He's healthy. It's just they make him questionable every single day. Whenever we get LeBron James without Anthony Davis in the lineup, he's someone we have to consider. His price is down. He's back below 11K on FanDuel, just over 10K on DK. I like him a lot here. One of my preferred payups, actually, and there are a lot of good ones on the slate. So yeah, LeBron looks great here. The main reason I'm so heavy on LeBron, if he's in, is this game has a 241 point total. That is just massive. Both of these teams like to run and gun. Offense first, at least with AD out of the lineup. And yeah, both teams look good here. But it's tough to prioritize anything from the Lakers really other than LeBron. I don't mind. Let's see here. Schroeder's listed as probable. Lonnie Walker's probable. I don't mind a guy like Austin Reeves or Russ Westbrook as a six-man coming off the bench. They're both fine. But really, like I said, the priority here is going to be LeBron. Just taking a quick look at ownership, seeing if any of the Lakers are popping towards the top. Just LeBron at 15% on DK, just over 10% on FanDuel. And Oh yeah, Thomas Bryant over on FanDuel at just 6K flat. He's been kind of inconsistent with AD out of the lineup, but as long as he's starting at center, I do think Thomas Bryant's a solid center play here as well. So LeBron and Bryant are the priorities from the Lakers side. I would say John Collins is the priority from Atlanta, and I don't mind a Kongu as well. So another good game, 241 point total. That's just a really solid game environment. Moving into the next game on the slate, we have the Phoenix Suns at the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are on a back-to-back, so no injury report yet for them. I'll talk through them quickly here. So yesterday we did see Van Fleet miss. He's listed as questionable. I imagine he plays today. If he's out again, though, that would make Gary Trent a really strong play. That would provide a boost to guys like Siakam, Barnes, OG as well. Malachi Flynn, he looked okay even coming off the bench yesterday. He didn't get the start. They actually went with a bigger lineup. They had Koloko starting. But yeah, Van Fleet's out again. I do like all the other Toronto starters, and I do like Gary Trent off the bench. His price only went up 100, so definitely keep an eye on that piece of news. Pascal Siakam, he's been excellent. He's going to be pretty low owned here, especially if Van Fleet is in. I do think he's a solid pay up option if you need him, but if Van Fleet's in, there's really no priority for me on Toronto. They'll just be a decent team you can mix in, but no real core play or anything like that. Over on the Phoenix side, we're seeing Campaign still out, Landry Shamet still out, Devin Booker still out, Jay Crowder out. So this backcourt is very, very thin right now. So first and foremost, we got to look at Chris Paul. I think he looks great here. He really hasn't been hitting the ceilings we were expecting out of him when Booker got ruled out a couple games ago. But as a result, his price hasn't had to come up. So that's kind of a double-edged sword in some ways. I do still like Chris Paul a lot here. Dwayne Washington has been kind of a talking point across the industry. This is a guy who hasn't been a great fantasy producer throughout his career. But yeah, he's had some big games with all these other guards out. So I don't mind Dwayne Washington. Not someone I'm forcing. I think there is better value on the slate. And then Damian Lee as well, I kind of see in a similar light. If Lee were to start, I'd feel a little bit better about him. But again, not a guy who has a very high fantasy point per minute rate. So Washington and Lee are decent value plays, but really you're prioritizing Chris Paul here with all these guards out. Mikal Bridges, he's been okay. Really hasn't been hitting the ceilings we expected out of him with Booker and others out. But yes, small forward's always a thin position. I don't mind getting there. You could mix in guys like Torrey Craig, Josh Okogie, not really priorities. DeAndre Ayton looks good here, especially on DK at 7,500. Coming off a really solid game where he was just shy of 50 fantasy points. But yeah, I don't know. It's just tough to really prioritize him over some of the other center plays. But if I am playing him, it's on DK. 8,600 on FanDuel. Really not rushing to get to him there. But yeah, just clicking through FanDuel, take a look at some of these prices. I mean, Washington's up to 4,200. I think Lee's minutes are safer, but Washington's been the better producer. It's just kind of muddied value with these three. So I think you could kind of mix them in. No real priorities for me from Phoenix in terms of value. I do like Chris Paul a lot. I think Bridges is a solid play, and Ayton is fine, but I like him much better over on DraftKings. Okay, so we can move into the 8 o'clock window now. We have the Chicago Bulls hosting the Detroit Pistons. The Bulls are 8.5-point favorites at home. 230-point game total here. I'm just going to refresh the model and see if we got updated FanDuel prices or anything yet. Still waiting for that data feed to kick in. Definitely will by lock. It's very early in the morning, but I'm going to keep an eye on that. Anyway, so let's take a look over at the Pistons and Bulls. Yeah, so the Pistons had a couple guys suspended. Not nearly as many as Orlando. Hamidou Diallo and Killian Hayes are both out for suspension. Marvin Bagley's listed as questionable. Cade Cunningham's still out and injured. So we're probably going to get some value on this Detroit team as well. Not nearly as much as Orlando, but Alec Burks, I think, looks excellent here. If he starts, he could be a core play for me. Very scoring dependent, but we've seen he's not afraid to shoot the basketball. Up to 5-3 on FanDuel. Definitely more appealing on DraftKings, but look at these scores, man. I mean, just under 30 minutes in back-to-back games. 32 real points last time out. Almost 50 fantasy points for Alec Burks. So if he starts, he's a priority for me here. Again, they're very thin, especially in the backcourt. Jaden Ivey, another scoring-dependent guard, a bit more expensive, but he's been a bit more productive. I think lately we've seen the better games out of Burks with the point guards out because he's doing more ball handling. Jaden Ivey's more of a true shooting guard, where Burks is kind of a hybrid. So I do like Burks a lot here. Probably my favorite Piston as things stand. We could see Corey Joseph start, which would present some value. Really not someone I'm ever prioritizing, just not a great fantasy producer. Um, and then, yeah, if Sadiq Bey slides into the starting lineup, I think he's fine. We've seen some really solid games out of Boyan over the past few weeks. I think he's a good play. Taking a look at Sadiq Bey's price, I know he was under 4K last time out, and he got, yeah, 50 fantasy points. So, yeah, if Bey's starting, I do think he's a really solid value play. I'll say him and Burks are my two priorities here. Bogdan's priced where he should be, but he's a strong play. But yeah, I think everyone's talking about Orlando, but Detroit's kind of in a similar situation. Then in the front court with Bagley, questionable. If Bagley's out, that's going to make Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duran look better. So keep an eye on that for sure. But Detroit, really solid spot here. Obviously not the best matchup against the Bulls, but it is a 230-point game total. We are seeing the spread under double digits. So they should be able to keep this one close, even without a couple of their key pieces. But again, Burks is a priority. Ivy I like. Sadiq Bey, if he starts, is a priority for me. And then we got to keep an eye on that news with Marvin Bagley because Jalen Duran and Isaiah Stewart would both look even better here with Bagley out. So keep an eye on that Bagley news. But again, as things stand, I do think Burks and Bey are probably going to be priority plays for me on both sites. Over on the Chicago side, we are seeing Alex Caruso now probable. Kobe White, Patrick Williams, questionable. So they're healthy for the most part. We've seen some really strong games out of Ayo Donsumu lately, but those have come with Caruso out of the lineup. It's going to be tough for me to prioritize anything from Chicago. They're just one of these teams that when they're healthy, it's tough to know who to pick. I mean, Vooch looks fine, Levine looks good, DeRozan looks good. All three of them are fine plays, but it's tough for me to really want to prioritize one over the other. If you're desperate for a punt tonight, and I don't think we will be, there's enough value. I don't mind Andre Drummond. We've seen in some of these games that have not been close or games where Vooch gets in foul trouble that he has enough upside to kind of win you a tournament. So I don't mind Drummond, but on a 9-game slate, he's really tough to prioritize. But as things stand, there's no major priorities for me on Chicago. I do think Levine's a bit too cheap, especially on FanDuel at 7,500. Very scoring dependent for the most part, though. Hasn't been hitting huge ceilings, but this does feel like the type of game where we could see him go off. So I like DeRozan, I like Vooch, I like Levine. It's tough to pick one over the other. And then, yeah, there is some peak value over on the Detroit side as well. So definitely keep an eye on that. We can move into the next game on the slate now. We have the Milwaukee Bucks hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Bucks are 6.5-point favorites at home. Bucks have been a little bit spotty lately, dealing with some injuries. Drew Holiday is doubtful. Chris Middleton is out. So once again, Giannis is going to be one of the best pay-ups on the slate. No surprise there. When the other two big usage players are out, we've seen even bigger games come from Giannis. Javon Carter was a popular value play last time out. He completely dudded. I think we could go back there today, especially if no one's going to want to play him. Kind of more of a tournament play for me because we do have good value in other spots, but I don't mind Carter. Grayson Allen, I mean, he's a dirty play. I was kind of expecting maybe we see him suspended, but that didn't take place. I'm fine going to Grayson Allen here. With the other guards out, he's a decent option. Pat Connaughton as well. Total dud last time out. But all this value for Milwaukee, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if any of these guys had a big game, that being Connaughton, Allen, or Carter. None priorities. Giannis is the priority for me here. I do like Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez in the front court. They're both fine here as well. Obviously, we're missing guards and wings, but there is a trickle-down effect in usage. We see guys like Lopez and Portis get higher usage rates with those guys out of the lineup. So I do like Lopez. His price is up though. I do like Portis as well at just 5,700 on FanDuel. Taking a quick look at the price over on DK, 6,300, 6,100 respectively. They're both solid over there as well. But yeah, there's some good value here on a smaller slate. I'd definitely be more excited to get there. But Giannis sub 12K on both sites with both Drew and Middleton out of the lineup, I think is one of your better pay-ups on the board tonight. So get some Giannis in your lives for sure. Let me quickly sort by value here. Yeah, we're seeing Javon Carter still popping towards the top. No surprise. Obviously coming off a terrible game. I don't think anyone's going to want to play him. He's around 14% owned right now. I could see getting to some of him on both sites. Grayson Allen as well. Don't think I'd want both of them in the same lineup, but yeah, I mean they're decent value options, even coming off a terrible game. Like you gotta have a short memory in NBA DFS. Over on the Minnesota Timberwolves side, we're seeing Kyle Anderson questionable, Torian Prince out, Karl Anthony Towns obviously still out. This has been a tricky team to kind of project. I do like Edwards here. I do like D'Angelo Russell here. Russell's actually been better with McLaughlin out of the lineup. It's kind of a weird correlation, but something to keep an eye on. McLaughlin is out again tonight, so I do like Russell here once again. Rudy Gobert, kind of boomer bust, even with Cat out of the lineup, but I do think he's solid. Kyle Anderson, questionable. If he's out, both Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid become interesting mid-range value options. Naz Reid has been excellent. LSU guy, I'm a fan. I like this guy a lot. But if he's going to continue to get those minutes from Anderson, he's going to be a viable tournament option, not someone we have to prioritize. But yeah, I mean, Gobert looks good at his price. I like Russell. I like Edwards. And keep an eye on that Kyle Anderson news. If he's out, we're going to look at Naz Reid and McDaniels as tournament plays. But no major priorities for me from Minnesota. So we can move into the next game here. We're into the 8:30 window now. We have the 76ers, just 1 point underdogs on the road in New Orleans. Really good game. Two of the best defensive teams in the league here. That being said, they're pretty damn good on offense as well. So we're looking at just under a 230-point total. Pelicans, still no Brandon Ingram. Larry Nance is doubtful. Herbert Jones is questionable. Herb seems healthy. They're just trying to condition him, so keep an eye on that. But yeah, Zion and McCollum here, both strong plays. I definitely like Zion more, but he is more expensive. Over 50 fantasy point ceiling. We've seen it come out consistently. Tough matchup against Philly. But yeah, this is prime time, Friday night. Two really talented teams. I could see him going off here. Don't mind McCollum. Don't love the price even with Ingram out. And if Herb Jones is out, we could maybe go to Murphy or Marshall as secondary options. Joval looks good here, especially if Nance is going to sit. But again, he's the guy who we see get in foul trouble frequently. That could become an issue against Joel Embiid. Personally, I'll mix him into my tournament builds. Tough to prioritize him, but he is a bit too cheap on both sides for his upside. Over on the Philly side, still no Tyrese Maxey. That's really the one piece of news that is significant. Just clicking between the two sites here. I mean, yeah, Harden's price is up on DK. He's now 10K flat. He's over 10K on FanDuel at 10-2, but I still think he's a solid tournament play. I do like Embiid on both sites if you can get to him. There's just some pretty solid value with center tonight, so it's really tough to prioritize him there. No real value from Philly I'm looking into. It's really those two pay-ups. We'll see if anyone is popping in terms of ownership for Philadelphia. Really nobody as things stand. So we'll keep an eye on that throughout the day. Things could certainly change, but as it looks right now, yeah, it's just tough to prioritize anything from this game. Both teams really good defensively. I think obviously the pay-ups, the stars are good here in Zion and Embiid and Harden, but I'm not prioritizing them over guys like Giannis or LeBron. So we can move into the next game, 9 o'clock window. We are looking at the Miami Heat at the Nuggets. The Nuggets are 4-point favorites at home, just a 223.5-point total here. Taking a look over at the injury report, Bruce Brown is questionable, Aaron Gordon is questionable, Jamal Murray is questionable. Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. All these guys I think could go, but the fact that they're all listed as questionable, this is something we have to keep an eye on. If they're all out, then we're going to like Bones Highland again. He had a great game starting at point guard with Murray out last time, so keep an eye on that. Michael Porter Jr. coming off the injury this week has actually looked really good. I'm fine getting to Michael Porter, but obviously the best play in this game is Jokic if you can't afford him. Not the best matchup against the Heat. 12-1 on FanDuel certainly is a hefty price tag. Bit tough to stomach, but he is one of the best players in the league. 11-8 on DK, I actually think is a bit more favorable today, which is surprising. Usually the payups are easier to get to on FanDuel, but Jokic, where you have two center spots and you get him at 11-8, I do like him a lot over on DraftKings. But yeah, we really got to keep an eye on the news here. If Murray's out, Bones Highland's going to become a priority. If Bruce Brown's out, that's going to help Highland as well. KCP's actually been good finally for the Nuggets the past couple games, getting over 20 fantasy points consistently. Don't mind him as kind of a secondary value piece, but I would like a couple of these guys to be ruled out for me to want to get to him consistently. Then, like I said, Michael Porter Jr. is fine. If all these guys are out, then we could go to Kankar again. He didn't look great last time, but I think of these kind of bench guys, he's one of the better ones. Zeke Naji, the more talented compared to Konkar, but yeah, Malone has been kind of hesitant to give him minutes for whatever reason. If Najee starts and all those other guys, Gordon, Murray, and Brown are out, I do think you could go to him for value. But as things stand, this is a fluid situation, one we have to keep an eye on. I think regardless, Jokic looks good here. If Murray's in, he looks good. If Murray's out, we like Bones. But definitely keep an eye on the news for the Nuggets. Over on the Miami Heat side, we have Haslam questionable, not really a needle mover. Caleb Martin questionable. Jimmy Butler is probable. Then both Dedmon and Yurt7 are out. So take a quick look at Miami here. I mean, Butler is healthy. He just rests a lot. If he's in, I like him. If he's out, that's a big boost to both Hero and Bam. Hero's priced up around 9K now on both sides, so he's tough for me to want to get to. But I think he is fine. Lowry did rest last game. Saw a decent game out of Gabe Vincent starting as value. But, I mean, if these guys are healthy, they're just tough to prioritize. And I imagine we see that reflected in the ownership. Yeah, no one from Miami popping on DK. No one from Miami popping on FanDuel. Just going to refresh the model again. Still waiting for those FanDuel prices to come in. It might be a FanDuel issue, actually, but we should get this taken care of soon. But yeah, just to kind of recap, obviously Jokic is one of the best plays on the slate. No surprise there. If Jimmy Butler's in, I think he's fine. See him popping as a top index play. But if he's out, we're going to like Bam and Hero more. But again, another late game. We have to keep an eye on the news. Moving into the 10 o'clock window, just a couple games left. Once again, thanks everyone for tuning in with me today. Please like the video, also subscribe to the channel. Help us get more free content like this out to you. So in this 10 o'clock window, we are looking at the Sacramento Kings hosting the Utah Jazz. 3.5-point favorites are the Kings. 241.5-point game total here. So another excellent game environment. Really no major injury news in this one. We have Trey Lyles is questionable for the Kings. Jazz are without Micah Porter. Not exactly a needle mover. But yeah, Sabonis and Fox both look fine here. I think they're okay. They're priced kind of where they should be. Fox at 8,500. He's easier to get to, but Sabonis has been the better fantasy producer all season. At 10.4, if he's going to be reasonably owned, I do like Sabonis here. He does have power forward eligibility, I think, on both sites. Nope, just FanDuel. So he's easier to get to on FanDuel tonight. But yeah, those are the two guys I'm really looking at. Harrison Barnes is a player I'm always considering kind of as the last guy in. He's just at a good price, and he sees a lot of minutes. Even if the usage isn't high, he kind of gets you to value when you need him to, so I don't mind him, especially in a game with such a high total. As far as secondary options go, you can maybe mix in some Malik Monk, Keegan Murray. None of these guys are priorities, though. It's really just Sabonis and or Fox. Yeah, I'm really not rushing to get the guys like Herter, Davis, etc. So over on the Utah side, this is as healthy as they've been all season. I still like Lauri Markkanen. He looks good. Jordan Clarkson, Kelly Olynyk, fine plays. Really no one I'm prioritizing. The one guy I do like from Utah is probably Mike Conley. He just feels a little bit too cheap here. Obviously not the best fantasy producer, but he stays below 6K. We see him over 30 minutes consistently. He does have those outlier games where he gets you around 40 fantasy points, which is enough to really carry you at low ownership. So I do like Conley here, but two healthy teams, really tough to prioritize anything. I do think my favorite play here is definitely Sabonis, followed by Fox and Lauri, but I mean, the prices reflect that. So no priorities for me from this game. Moving into the last game on the slate, we have the Warriors hosting the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers are actually 2.5-point favorites on the road. Interesting spot here for sure. I mean, the Warriors are historically, or just dating back the past couple of seasons, one of the best home teams in the NBA, but they're missing some of their better players right now in both Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins. Draymond and DiVincenzo both listed as probable. Obviously expect they'll go here. Jordan Poole's been solid. I mean, defenses have been kind of clamping down on him with Steph out of the lineup, but his prices come down as a result. I like him as a tournament play. Don't mind Clay. Obviously scoring dependent, wide range of outcomes. Draymond, not really a super consistent fantasy producer. I do like DiVincenzo, though. I don't mind him at all. He's been shooting the ball a lot with these other guys out. Price just at 6K, right around 6K on both sides. 6,100 on FanDuel. Taking a look over on DK. 6,200 on DK. So I do like him here. Poole better on FanDuel tonight. DiVincenzo solid on both sides. Don't mind Draymond. Really not rushing to get to him, though. And then Clay, wide range of outcomes, pretty inconsistent. it's just tough to get excited about anything else from this game, even with the very high total. I think you can mix these guys in, but I don't imagine we're going to see very high ownership on any Warriors tonight. Yeah, no one popping for value. And yeah, Clay is getting some ownership on DK. But yeah, really not a major priority for me. I think it is a good game environment for him. Though, the Trailblazer side of things. No Nasir Little. Nurkic is probable. Justice Winslow's out. So no major news here. Obviously, Dame looks solid. Um, Fine getting to him. Jeremy Grant's been good. Don't mind getting to him. Simon's all okay plays. I do like Nurk where he's sub 7K over on DraftKings. Just over 7K on FanDuel's fine. But again, pretty healthy team. We have teams with a lot of injuries, a lot of suspensions on this slate. So when you're getting a healthy team, they're usually priced where they should be. They're tough to prioritize. I do like Dame at 9,100 on FanDuel, though. That does feel a bit too cheap compared to some of the other guards. Like we're seeing him at 9,700 on DK. I think that's more of an accurate price. He's been excellent. So I like Dame. Don't love him, but I do like him a lot on FanDuel at just 9,100. Jeremy Grant's fine on both sites. But really, no priorities for me here as things stand. Again, really interesting slate. We have a lot of news we're waiting on. Obviously, that Orlando situation is going to be a fun one to kind of navigate throughout the day. I do consider the Magic starters to kind of be core plays, especially in cash formats. Fultz, Wagner, Bol all look excellent here. We got to keep an eye on that Detroit lineup as well. I could see getting to guys like Burks, Sadiq Bey. So yeah, I mean, it sucks that these guys are all suspended. I hate to see violence in an NBA game, especially a sucker punch like Hayes put on Wagner. Yeah, you can't be punching guys in the back of the head. If it's illegal in the UFC, it's probably a sucker move in the NBA. But regardless, you're kind of starting with those two ugly teams tonight. A lot of good pay-ups. Giannis without Drew or Middleton's going to be a priority for me. Sorting by index quickly. Giannis towards the top, then Jokic, Embiid, Sabonis. No real surprises there. We're seeing Banchero higher than usual. I like him a lot on both sites. Hoping Beal sits. That'll make that game even more competitive. 5-point spread as things stand. Should be a fun one. Again, my name's Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. If you haven't already signed up to Occupy, check the links in the description below. Like the video, click subscribe, help us get more free content like this out to you. Let's have some fun tonight and make some money. Good luck, everyone. Take care.